What are your values? How are they helping or hindering your success? Do they need to change? Are they serving you? Hi there, I'm Greg Venning, and this is the Quest in Chiropractor podcast. And in this episode, we discuss the importance of values and how they relate to creating the practice of your dreams, self-care, your family, overwhelm, and even politics. Karen Kulevski joins me for this one, and she's a powerhouse of a person. She's run high volume practices. She's a mum. She runs an associate driven practice in Perth, Australia, and she makes the space and time to be on the board for the Australian Chiropractors Association. She's also a technique instructor for advanced biostructural correction in Australasia and one of our Quest coaches. Safe to say, Karen gets things done. We talk about making your practice your happy place, making sure we make time for self-care, helping people choose to stay in care in your practice for longer, as well as letting them go with love when it's time. Listen to Karen's strong drive to leave a legacy in her family, her business, and the profession, and see what stirs in your soul. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Questing Chiropractor podcast. We help you grow as visionary, vitalistic, and capable chiropractors who are always on. We do things differently as we help to elegantly awaken your innate wisdom within. We help you create robust, predictable, and trustworthy practices that serve oceans of people and yet still have free time for yourselves and your families. We use neuroscience to deliver better business results so that you can get greater, deeper, and more effective impact in more ways. We are Questing Chiropractors, and this is our story. Welcome to the Questing Chiropractor. Today we have Karen Kulevski with us. And actually, I've butchered your surname there, Karen. Give us your surname properly, please.
Kulevski.
Kulevski. Yeah. I always put a V in there. Why do I always put a V in there?
Well, there is a V, but people
mix up the
order of the V and the ego. So, yeah, Kulevski.
Beautiful. All right. So you, to me, are a master at creating value. It's something you do almost wherever you go from where I've seen. You've done it in practice where you've seen high volume practice as an associate. You do it as a practice owner now with associates. You do it in national associations. You've done it with technique organizations. For you, what is it about creating value that's so important, that is so amazing for you? Like, what is it within chiropractic? And what do we bring to the world, and where is that for you? I know that's a big, hairy question, but just like, where does that take you?
I think one of the places I started in my career was I didn't really understand myself or my values, and I just coasted along thinking the universe will provide, right? And I think one of the things that happened, you were a part of this, Greg, was when we were in the UK, we had that mass complaint against us, right? And I was just like, oh, yeah, the universe will sort it out. And then I realized the universe was other people. And if we leave things to chance, then we can't really complain about where we end up, right? So a lot of people, I think, are doing that. They're just coasting along and not really sure of what they stand for or who they are, just hoping that things will work out. So I got to a point where I went, hang on, I need to understand myself a little bit more and how I can influence the direction that my life takes. And then I started working with Mark, and we did this thing that was about defining values. And I think I cried, I laughed, I dug deep. And even today, while I was reading a few things yesterday and preparing for this, I was just like, do I really know my values? Do I really know what it is that drives me? And so we're constantly having to look at what we value and what value, therefore, we bring. Because, yeah, as we evolve, what perhaps we valued in our 20s and our 30s, now in my 40s, we may have different drivers. We may have things that are slightly different, that are, either consciously or unconsciously, and a little bit of both, driving us in certain directions. So when I got to that point where I went, okay, is life just happening to me, or do I want to have some control of it? And I think that's where I realized that my legacy, or what I leave behind, or the change that I make to the world, was a big value for me. It was a large part of it was defining, my values helped me to understand in my world why some things were really easy for me to do and some things were harder. And I think, Greg, you could agree with this. We see that with our questers as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, the
Yeah.
things you value the most are the things you can fly at, and especially when you put the innate model over that. And then there's the parts in our practice and in our practice life that we find tough and challenging, and they're usually lower down on our list of values. And that's why it's so powerful. And I agree with you. The first time I sat down and defined my values was literally earth shattering, because it really broke a sense of reality that I had that I realized was a fantasy, and helped me to see a closer representation of reality, so I could actually work with what was there. I could play to my strengths. I could manage my weaknesses. And that really comes to the first part of, and I like that I'm doing this with you, is the first part of the kind of promise that I think we make to questers is you can do what makes your heart sing. And that's the first thing to really get right. That's values. Then we can structure our flow around those values. Then we can change the world one person at a time. And then we get to enjoy the profits of our labors. And that starts with finding out what makes your heart sing. Consciously defining your values. What do you create in the world? What do you bring that is special and new and unique? And one of the big parts I want to chat with you now on, I want to move to, is how have you gone about, for yourself and for some of the people who've been coaching, helping them to define the values of their business and of their enterprise, their practice?
Yeah, okay. It's quite interesting because a lot of people have this idea that you have to work these really long hours and be massively available and bend over backwards and give people all this time, right? Like so much time, but but am I giving them enough? And I guess these are our limiting beliefs, right, around money and time, and time is money and all of that, and just trying to shatter some of those things, but we're obviously working it around the values. So one of the things that I really find, once you start pinning things down for people, that particular thing about accepting money and having this practice of your dreams, that really is a place that you love to go to, right? It's your playground, it's your fun place, that place where when you step in there, the world is a great place. Like nothing else can penetrate that. There's no evil or negative that can come in there because it's this amazing space that you've built, right? And I think the biggest thing I love to help people understand is how valuable they are, and to know that accepting money for your services adds value to your practice, right? So what do we mean by that? Well, valuing health within your practice. So health for us as chiropractors is having time to do the things we love, time to recharge. So not working, 16-hour days with no days off, right? Because we can't sustain that. So if we really value health, then we have to value our own health first and foremost, right? We also have to make sure that our values are reflected in our practices in terms of, well, you're asking somebody to get adjusted regularly, to move their body a particular way, to perhaps eat a particular way, to think about how healthy their thoughts and their mind are. Are you doing these things yourself?
Yeah, it starts with us. So it's so powerful. I hope everybody listening is really soaking that in. Okay, cool. Keep going.
Yeah. So we have to live our own values, because it's if we're not doing that, and we see that within the practice. So say you take on a CA, right? Because generally they're on a really cool journey, that some of the best CAs, right? And
Yes.
they're coming in to work with you because they are needing there's a lesson in there for them, right? They're on a journey and they're trying to figure some stuff out for their own health journey while they're helping facilitate other people on their health journey, which is what we're doing as chiropractors. We just have that little bit more training. But some of the CAs can almost be the best chiropractors once they've done their journey, right?
Yep.
Or they're not done because the journey's never done, but progress through the journey, right? So, but if we have these values of our practice that people aren't enrolled in, then we really see a clunkiness in the flow. It's not that happy place to be. It doesn't bring you joy to be in there. And Greg, I don't know, have you ever worked with a CA like that doesn't fit into the values of the practice? Yeah.
Yep.
And it's hard work, right?
Yeah, you feel it every day when you go in, and you just get the idea that it's not gelling, it's not vibing, and it's not because of a scripting thing, it's not because of a training thing. You just know there's some other deep fit that's not quite happening there.
So in this scenario, is it because the values of the practice don't encompass this person, but they are valuable, but you haven't quite got your values right? Or is it that they don't fit your values of your practice and they shouldn't be there?
Yeah, so often that they're a challenge to grow your values and grow your perspective of your enterprise, of your business, of your practice, to include that kind of person or the person who brings that to the fore.
Yeah, sometimes. And sometimes they're just not right.
Yeah. Yep. So the team that we have in the practice, they bring their own values into our practice, and then our practice has a set of values. And yes, our job then is to figure out where the fit is. So do they not fit with us, or is it our job to grow and include them? And it depends on what they're bringing to the game. It depends on a lot of what we feel is useful that they bring to our space. And if we like what they bring is useful, our job is to then grow our base to include their values. What about our practice members? And I've got kind of two parts I want to gel on that one. One is, how do we identify practice members' values? And this is so key. So for people listening, that's a major point of helping to turn short-term patients into long-term practice members, is identify their values. And what happens, what do you kind of suggest, or what happens when their values don't align with what the practice currently has or the chiropractor currently has?
The thing about finding out what somebody values, you can find out a lot really in that first visit, right? As you're talking and you're asking questions. And as much as we have these questions that we ask that are designed to find out about their health journey and, their problems, I guess, if we really listen to the way they answer questions, it could be things like, I just want to be able to walk my dog, pick up my grandchildren, or it's affecting me from being able to play sport, or I can't work. There's a lot of things that people will tell us that we have to listen to that aren't just a tick box on a form, right? So paying attention to the way people answer questions is always really important.
Yeah, that strong, active, empathetic listening. So you're really picking up the cues they're giving you beyond the tick box data that we need to gather.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about the Quest, the intake form that we have, right? It isn't, tick this area of pain or whatever. It's such a basic form in many ways that is designed to spark questions, So it's about, people will sometimes look at you and go, wow, that was a really strange form. So it is designed to open up a conversation rather than to just go, right, well, I know everything I need to know about you. Just lie down on the table. Let's have a little feel and see what's going on, right?
Yeah, I love the positioning. And for those who don't know, the intake form we use for Quest is, we see the intake form not as a data gathering device. That's the clinician's job, is to gather the data. It's not the person's job to know what information you need. The intake form is primarily a positioning document to allow a person to open themselves up to different questions, which allows them to see you as something different from a pain provider. And so from the first interaction they have with us, we're in a slightly different box from the very beginning, which is just so powerful in helping them to reframe from pain-based, once the job's done, once the pain's gone, the job's done, to, hey, this might be something that's worth doing on a longer-term basis so I can do other things better. And this is where the values come in, is helping people to realize what's important in their life, because they often don't know it explicitly, just like we didn't before we did that, and then linking the chiropractic care to what you value and what they value. So are you here because you have back pain, or are you here because you can't play golf anymore? And are you here because you might be scared that in 10 years' time you won't be able to play golf, or you won't be able to climb the mountain you want to climb, or you won't be able to be the mum you want to be, or the grandparent you'd love to be 2, 3, 4 decades from now? And the deeper those values go,
do you have that thought about being a grandparent?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. And that's the thing. It's funny because when I was doing all of this, thinking about all of this, my values and everything today, family is a really, really, like, it's my number one. And I just thought, what does that mean? It's like about defining that as well. And like you're saying, it's like about being a parent, but a grandparent or a great grandparent, right? Like, some people have that level in their head, and I do. I'm already looking forward to being a grandmother. My son's 16, so not yet.
You're not encouraging him there yet.
But it's in my head, right? That's what a lot of the reasons why I do, and why we do what we do, to set up things for the future generations. It's not just for the now. We want people to have access to chiropractic care, and we start that with what's happening in our practice, and that those individual people in front of us, right? But anyway, sorry, I stole your conversation there. But the grandparent thing just really reminded me that that's a big one for me, and I want to see great grandchildren.
Yeah. And that's a great thing to ask people. Maybe not on the first visit, depending on your rapport with the person when you're seeing them. But as you're going through care and they're getting results and they're seeing change, to help them to really stretch their timeline into the future, because people will stay with us as chiropractors as long as we are holding a future for them. When they run out of future with us, then they leave and they move on and they go somewhere else. So if you're pegging their future as far in advance, where you know that with these adjustments that you're providing, where each one builds on the one before, and they're on a journey and they're on a plan, and you're doing your regular progress exams so you can help them to actually measure and plot this. And you drop in a question along the way of like, so, and I love doing this for really young people who haven't even had kids yet, or just planning, like a mum's just had her first, or she's just preggy with her first, is like, what kind of grandparent do you want to be? And you'll see this perturbation that kind of happens. You've really kind of caused ripples in the pond of their mind. And when you let those ripples flow as far as they need to, and you don't even have to answer the question, don't even come back to it for a few years, but that little seed that you've planted will grow into something amazing and will help them to have a bigger vision for themselves than they had. And then you build your chiropractic care matching their vision. And suddenly they're under your care for not just days, but weeks, and not weeks, but months, and months to years, and further into decades.
Yeah. And then your children that are going to become chiropractors too take care of their future generations as well, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That's in the plan. It's in the plan. Yeah. I was going to say, the other thing that you talked about was the people that whose values don't match your practice, and what happens with them. So that's an interesting sort of thing to touch upon, because a lot of people, a lot of chiropractors get stuck on that whole, but why did they reject me, right? Why are they not in my practice anymore? And it is a case of, is it it's you not me, or is it actually it's me not you?
Exactly. And being quite specific about our values and making sure we display them wherever we go, and that's from the colors on the wall in our practice to how we do our form. We realized that some people are not going to vibe with ours and we're not going to vibe with theirs. And for me, what I found incredibly valuable over time was the concept of every person is the ideal person for you right now, as you growing as a person, as the practitioner, and for them. So when they come in and you realize that maybe their values don't align, just like with that CA, is this a chance for me to grow my vision of chiropractic and how I can provide it and who I can provide it for? And so they are my ideal person for now. And in episode 1, we touched on with Mark that this great thing about being a practicing chiropractor is we get to do self-development every moment of every day that we're practicing, and people pay us for it.
Yeah. It's so good.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
That's so true. Yeah. So I guess, that's a really important thing for, especially, I suppose, people that have just started out on their chiropractic journey. Is yes, take it personally, but don't let it. Don't let these things become something that's a negative. It's got to be part of the learning journey. It's like, well, what was it about this person that came into my practice and that left? What was that just where they're at on their journey? And maybe you'll see them again as their values start to evolve, or your values start to evolve, or perhaps, perhaps they weren't the person for you to be working with at this point in time, and then they're not the right person for you. Because we've also spent time in practice, I know that I have, should we say flogging a dead horse, really trying to connect with someone whose values are just so different to what you're doing that it takes from our joy, right?
It's best we can do is let them go with love.
Yes.
Is we do the best we can with what we have, and we're all these finite beings in an infinite universe. We're all imperfectly perfect. And so there's certain times where we've done our best and our best just doesn't connect with that person. And if we've let them go with love, and this is the bigger context that we have, if we've let them go with love and let them have a positive experience of chiropractic, they'll find it along their path at another point when they're more right for it, when somebody's more right for them. And the lessons we've learned from them, they've learned from us in this interaction, will make the next ones better. It'll make it better for us when we deal with somebody like that again. We'll know how better to connect with them. And when they go to the next place, they'll know what they're looking for. They'll be able to communicate it better. So they'll have a longer term journey the next time. Not everybody gets lifetime chiropractic the first time or the second time or the third time. It takes repeated episodes to get there.
Correct. And it takes us repeated exposures to understand and to learn, right? Which is why we're constantly learning and growing. The other thing I have found in my nearly 20 years in practice is that, you might have, I've seen people that have seen other chiropractors and they might have only been there for a few visits or whatever, but they still feel enrolled in chiropractic, right? They don't go, oh, yeah, no, that was a rubbish experience, so I only went for a few visits. They actually really got something out of that interaction. So even if there's someone who hasn't been a lifetime care person at that point in time, it doesn't mean that they didn't really have a lot of any positivity in that. They got a lot out of that. It was what they needed at that particular point in time. And then as they evolve and their values start to change, and we see that, right? You look at the, I have parents come in and, and they've got the teenager and they're like, oh, they slouch about all the time. You should see their posture. I can't get them to get off this device, or they're all hunched over, or they don't do any exercise, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, if only you could put your knowledge in your, late 30s, 40s, 50s, or whatever, into this teenager so they could see what the result is of their behaviors now, then wouldn't that be so valuable to that person, right?
Yeah.
But they have to do their own journey and their own education and have their values evolve. But I think the key is, right, and you'll know this, Greg, having young children, they might not always understand all the things that you value, like healthy eating and movement and exercise, and developing your mind and learning and growing. There might be times when they're like, oh, can't I just have the lollies for breakfast? But it's that those your values that you're instilling in them early that they will default to, right? Or
Absolutely.
it will get them thinking as they grow older. Hang on, I remember mum and dad made me do this, and I can kind of see the reason why. So, and it's the same with our practice members. They're just our young children in our practice with that first exposure of our values. So, once they go out and do life a little bit, the coolest part is when you have someone referred into you by a person and they're saying your words back at you. It's like, yeah, they told me this and this and that. And you're just like, they get it.
It's coming back. And
Yeah.
what you say there makes so much sense. The analogy between the small children at home and seeing practice members as burgeoning, growing people on their chiropractic path. And it's not always the values we explicitly say. Actually, it's hardly ever those ones that make a difference. It's the implicit things. It's how the front desk operates, it's how we talk to the front desk, how they talk to us, how we look after ourselves, what the walls look like, what kind of posters you have up, which questions you ask first and last on your intake form. Those are the things that really make the biggest difference. Now,
Yeah.
I'm respectful of your time here, and I want to do a part 2. And I think in the next one, it might be useful for us to talk a little bit more politics. We've done a lot in practice and in family today. And so in rounding up this idea of values, can you give me an idea of your own values? You've touched on a little bit at the beginning, and I want to just round off with this on the end, of how your values shifted and changed from that moment where you first started explicitly writing them down with your first exposure to Mark, and like how that's shifted over time, and just a short snapshot of that trajectory.
One of the things I love to do with people is what Mark did with me, and I found it really cruel at the time, but now I understand why he did it, was holding the values up against each other, right? So, and understanding where they place in the order of importance, but then being able to know when you have to maybe do something to reduce a charge on a certain value to be able to step another one up because there's a job that needs to be done, right? So, and that has definitely come through. Like, I've done a lot of travel over the last couple of years with my board commitments and, various, even with the ABC instructing and whatnot. And there's a greater purpose for that is about leaving a better future for my great grandchildren, which means that is for my family, but I've had to reduce the charge on the immediate family so I can step away and miss my daughter's sports carnival, not be there for my son's footy game. So it's about understanding that, because if we don't understand what's going on, we either stop and don't take action, don't move forward, don't do those things that we really, really want to do, or we just end up in overwhelm and confusion and don't understand why it's so hard for us to do something. So that's where I think it's really important to know the values, your values, know your practice values, know where everything fits in, where you have to perhaps look at the order and where this charge sits on this and how you can shift that around a little bit just to get something done, right? To move to action.
And that's a beautiful place to wrap up this part of the conversation. And I want to highlight something I've just taken from what you've just said. And so many people that we talk to, so many listeners here will be between one of these two situations. I was just chatting to somebody this morning I was doing a coaching session. And when people are in overwhelm, it's not because you're doing too little, it's because you're not doing enough that is high value for you. And if you're in a state of confusion and paralysis and not taking action, it's because your values aren't clear. So that's a beautiful place, and I think it's a strong message for people to take away. So Karen, for this part of the conversation, this has been amazing. Thank you very much for being with us, and we'll definitely have you on for one of the next episodes.
Thanks, Greg. I really appreciate the time. It's been fun chatting with you, as always.
Now, before you go, if you would like to hear more from us and you'd like to get free resources, then please join our Quest Community Facebook group. We will share with you different ways of how to do everything in your practice, from doing a new person consult to how to avoid burnout to how to run an associate-driven practice. Simply go to Facebook and search QCC Community. You'll find us there.